Hey everybody, Agent of Doubt here, back for another ramble, and today I want to get something else off my chest about the world of therapy in general. And today I want to talk about victim impact panels. And if you don't know what that is, basically, Mothers Against Drunk Driving have dominated that niche to the point where nobody recognizes it as anything other than mad panels, if they know what it is at all. But basically, people who are convicted of DUI, they are sentenced to everything else that they're sentenced to, plus go to a MAD panel. And so, Mothers Against Drunk Driving, they rent out a venue and then they pack it full of hundreds of people who each pay $50 to get in. And they are told that they're not going to get credit if they look at their cell phones or if they fall asleep or anything. So you have to pay attention to get credit for this. And then you'll get a little certificate at the end. But for a couple hours, you have to watch as people who have been impacted by drunk driving tell their stories. Now, they could have been hit by a drunk driver themselves, they could have lost a loved one to drunk driving, but basically, you have to hear from victims their stories. And my problems with this are twofold. First is on the justice side. We're talking about cruel and unusual punishment. The unusual part of this is the key here. It is kind of cruel, when you have this group that's basically intending to try to get people to feel so bad that they cry, because you're bringing the worst sob stories, right? But I'm not so much calling this cruel as it is unusual, because there is no other crime where you have to go in front of a panel of people who have also been victimized by that type of crime and not your crime. See, when you get sentenced by a judge, very often the victim statements get taken into account and they get put on the record, and you have to listen to the actual victims of your own crime for many different crimes, right? But drinking and driving is different. It's unusual in that you get convicted of that and you get sentenced to listen to whoever's victim story. Not the person that you victimized yourself, but somebody else did the crime that you did. They have victims, and you have to pay out of your pocket in order to hear the stories of other people's victims, right? It's unusual in that it's the only type of crime where this occurs, but because it's become pretty much standard with DUIs because of the lobbying of Mothers Against Drunk Driving, there is now this niche that is really a pretty good money making shtick, if you ask me. I mean, you pack a place full of hundreds of people that are mandated to be there, and you get to take $50 a pop from them. And if you decide that they were looking sleepy or they were talking to somebody else during the show, or they looked at their phone went off, that they have to leave. They don't get credit for it, and they have to pay you another $50 quote unquote donation because it's non refundable because it's a quote unquote donation, right? In my therapy practice, most of the time in group therapy, you're limited to no more than 12 people in the group because, any more than that, and it's not effective therapy, right? But in a victim impact panel, it's didactic. It's coming from one person. There's no engagement that's required. They get to tell their story, and you just have to watch and be there and be present and get butt time in a chair, right? So, my second problem with victim impact panels is that they masquerade as therapy. right? Many of you might have seen where people who don't have therapy degrees will call themselves gurus running a retreat or life coaches, you know, and this sort of thing is kind of like it's kind of accepted when somebody's being a coach or a personal trainer, you know, that has a lot of idioms to be able to give you, you know, some pick me up motivational sayings. You know, that's okay, right? But there is a realm of psychotherapy that is restricted to just trained professionals, right? And so it's not right for life coaches to say that they're doing psychotherapy, right? It's against the law, right? So, what would you say about a company that says that they teach people to recognize and internalize the lasting and long term effects of what they did, right? Me, as a therapist, I'm like, well, that sounds like therapy, you know? This is another quote right off of Mothers Against Drunk Driving's website for victim impact panels. Says that the purpose of it is also to leave a permanent impression that leads to changes in thinking and behavior and prevents future offenses. That sounds exactly like relapse prevention therapy to me. That's something that I actually do as a job, and I'm trained to do it, right? They're saying the purpose of what they're doing is to do that, but all they're doing is didactic from one person to an audience, speeches, and they're coming with victim stories, and whatever the victim says as their stories are valid, you know, and there are no controls or scientific studies that would tell you whether or not this is valid therapy or if it's actually making a difference. I mean, it's often done in conjunction with probation and mandated DUI education and therapy anyway. So how would you know if, you know, this was effective versus DUI therapy with a therapist when people are sentenced to both at the same time as a matter of course blanketly for any DUI offense? You can't you can't do a study to say whether or not this is valid and actually achieving its purpose versus other things that they are being sentenced to. So, yeah, when I see that they make statements, I'll just show you right here. I was reading right from their website. You know, leave a permanent impression that leads to changes in thinking and behavior. You know, sorry, that's therapy. You know, and they're getting away with it because they're a beloved nonprofit. If you say anything against Mothers Against Drunk Driving, you, sir, are an asshole. You know, they are bulletproof as far as that. But, you know, their shtick seems to be run these victim impact panels and collect the money and pay for their administration. You know, just like a lot of other nonprofit organizations, they've settled into how they make their money and how many people they can afford to employ, and that's what they are now. Are they a valid treatment for people who are DUI offenders? I don't know. I don't know. In some states, you're not even allowed to take the online version of the course. You must go to the live version, right? There is an online course available for people who live in certain states, but they want you to go to the live version because there is a money making machine in place here, you know, and I don't know that it's worth the money that they're taking out of people's lives, because what I'm trying to do is build people back up. And I know at every step of the way they're paying $15 for a UA, they're paying for their probation fines, they're paying, you know, $25 a week for their DUI classes. You know, every step of the way. When they have an ankle monitor put on, that's another couple $100s, you know. When they have to put the interlock system in their car, mandated, that's another couple $100s, you know. And anytime that there something about that doesn't work and it has to be recalibrated, surprise, another couple, maybe $100 out of your wallet, you know. And they nickel and dime these people to the point where they're not going to be able to lift themselves up out of the hole that they've dug themselves, especially when some of them have no driver's license, because it's been taken away, and they're having to pay extra to get to the 2 or 3 different jobs that they have, and they have a felony on their record. So, yeah, it's hard on their lives already. And I'm not sure that these victim impact panels do anything but take just a little bit more money out of them to make people feel good that there's an organization called Mothers Against Drunk Driving that gives voice to victims of drunk driving by giving them the opportunity to not just talk to their own attacker, their own abuser who hit them with a car or hit their loved one with a car. No, they get to talk to all of them. And that's the case I'm making. Talk to you guys later.